Hello, welcome to the Willamette Writers Author Series on Google+. I'm Bill Johnson, the Office Manager of Willamette Writers. And our first guest today is Courtney Pierce. And so, Courtney, please introduce yourself.
Thank you for having me, Bill. Yes, I'm Courtney Pierce, and I'm a full-time fiction writer.
Now, you have written 3 novels in what is called magic realism. So could you talk a little bit about your novels and, for people who aren't familiar with the term, what is magic realism?
Yes, it's more friendly and upbeat than wizards, but it's really about a magical element to everyday life. And in mine, it really is a baby boomer fiction novel, more than magical realism. Baby boomer fiction being geared towards 45 to 65, 70-year-olds with that baby boomer demographic that is getting ready to retire. And those are the themes of my book. And the first 3, it's a trilogy series, Stitches, Brushes, and Riffs, about a baby boomer couple who leaves the corporate life and finds a magical artifact at an estate sale, and it changes their life over 3 books.
What does this magical artifact do? I'm just curious.
It is a piece of fabric, hence the first book's name is Stitches, and it's from Egypt. And it holds the key to immortality. So the big thematic question over the 3 books is, if this couple has a choice to become immortal, what do they do with their life today?
Okay. So one of the things I like to do with with this series is for authors to share kind of like their writing process. So when you sit down to write, do you have a time that you write? Do you have tools that you use?
Well, my brain fires at 6 o'clock in the morning, so I wake up and do the creative part of writing, and getting the story down and new ideas happen all early in the morning. And then I take the afternoon where I refine things and edit and do marketing. That I for the other part of my brain. But yes, I'm a big outliner too.
Okay, so when you talk about outlining, there are many different kinds of outline processes. Could you talk a little bit about the process you use for your work?
Well, 2 people have been a major influence on me in my writing, and one of them is Larry Brooks and his story engineering philosophy, that writing a story is a science, and that you need to place your emotional beats and your plot points and your lulls and your resolution right at the right spot in a story, so it all fits together, because there's a natural expectation for a reader to explore those things. And then the second person who's been a huge influence on me is Jennifer Locke at the Attic Institute. I'm sort of a fixture there in her workshops, and one of her mantras is, "Where is the camera? Where is the camera?" So I'm always very cognizant of that, of getting into a scene right away. Not a lot of backstory, but get into that scene and let the characters tell the story instead of me. So it takes on a life of its own, and then you outline a picture for that reader of what's going on in that room, what are they holding in their hand, what's above them and around them, and fill it all in from there.
I teach screenwriting, and that's a standard technique in screenwriting. Is like start the scene as late as you can to get the important the turning point in the scene. It's great to hear a novelist speak about that kind of technique, because what you're doing is what I call conscious storytelling, where you're thinking about what you're doing. I think a lot of people are just introduced to the idea that storytelling is you have a muse and it organizes things for you and you just sit down and it happens. So it's enjoyable for me to hear someone that talks about thinking about what you're doing. So when you outline a story, you talk a little bit about the process. Do you outline the novel? Do you outline a chapter? Just talk about that.
I outline every single scene to make sure that there are no scenes in the book that are wasted. Everything has a purpose that moves the plot forward. Every single scene has a beginning, a middle, and an end, like a short story almost. And I also outline the beat sheet of what are the pulses of the story that keep the momentum moving forward, as well as the emotional beat sheet of not only where is the camera, what time of day am I in, so I'm not going from day to night to day or days. And also, where are the emotional points? You know, is the key to this scene about sadness or tension or anger? Or what emotion is at the center of this scene so that the writing reflects that?
It's great for me to hear this, because one of the things I teach is that a story is a journey of feeling. So, you know, if there's a scene with no feeling in it, there's no way for the reader to access the character's journey.
I kind of liken it to being a symphony conductor. You know, you can't learn the music while you're trying to actually conduct the symphony. You have to know that story and every beat of that story before you can start to play with the emotion of it.
Yeah, one thing I teach is that, I think the common mythology is that, again, that you simply sit down and write and see where you're going. Well, what I try to teach people is that if you have a sense of, if you know what the purpose of the scene is, when you write the scene, you can get to a deeper place. And so it's wonderful, again, for me to hear someone.
It is, and it's a bit of a science. You know, I started out following my muse, if you will, and just wrote the story as it came to me. And then I realized that I had lost so much, and I had to go back and do all of those things after the fact of switching things around so that they happened at the right time. So it's really much easier for me to have it all mapped out ahead. Now, that doesn't mean that things don't actually happen that have nothing to do with the outline. Sometimes the characters do things that I just can't control. Or they say crazy things that I never thought they'd say.
Now, when you talk about outlining, I mean, there are computer programs that let you do outlining. I mean, I worked with a screenwriter once who did the butcher paper method of outline, where you just had a sheet of butcher paper. So do you use tools to help you outline?
Well, I do it all in Excel, and I kind of color code things on whether it's camera or time of day or what that emotion is happening or what the plot points are. I got to color code them there. And then another thing that I do is once I've got the draft down, just the story, before I've gone back in and filled all the vista points, I take the first line of every chapter and the last line of every chapter, and I put them all in sequence so I can see where I'm taking the reader at the beginning of a chapter and where I leave them off, and go through the whole book that way of just the first and last line of every chapter.
One of the things every published author now deals with, whether they're traditional or self-published or something in between, is marketing. So what do you do to market your work?
A lot of what my marketing is done in person, but obviously the social networking part of it through Facebook and Twitter, as well as having a comprehensive website to present your work and what the themes are and about yourself. And then I have a blog that is attached to my website. I'm not as much of a blogger on my own site as I am a blogger on other people's sites. So I identify a lot of baby boomer types of websites, and then I'm a contributing author and submit articles that are into my demographic. So I get to advertise my books that way. And I'm also part of an author collective called Windtree Press, where we are independent authors, but we come together to support the marketing of each other's work. So there is a website, people can buy our books on the website. It talks about all the biographies and all of the books and descriptions of them, and then we market ourselves as a press. So when we go to events, we present ourselves as an author collective. It's so much harder to do it one on your own, one by one by one. It's great to lock arms with other people and share the pain of marketing.
You talked about blogging, and I think that's one of the best ways for an author to go viral in a sense. How do you find these blog sites where you get involved with them to promote your work?
Well, there are a lot of sites. Since my reader base is pretty much baby boomers, there are so many baby boomer websites that talk about baby boomer issues, aging, all of that, and poignant stories of Woodstock and everything else. And so I've identified them, and then I reach out to them and say, I'm an author that writes for baby boomers, and it's really not about hawking your book. It's not about saying, here's my book, here's what it's about, buy it. That really doesn't work anymore. It's really about what the core themes of your books are that interest people, and then at the end it's very subtle to say, and by the way, I'm the author of these books, and here's how you can buy them. So it's none of the shameless promoting, it's more about themes and content. You do. You start out doing everything you possibly can. If somebody invites you to a coffee shop and said, "Hey, we're going to be selling books," you do it, and then you identify where it is, because really the marketing success is whether you're coming home with a check or an auto deposit. That's really the best way to track that I've done. And so there are some things that are really, really important, and one is reaching out to independent bookstores. And the best way to do that is to go into the bookstore, shake their hand, introduce yourself, and make an appointment with them to sit down and talk about your work and give them a free book to read. And you can build lifelong friendships with bookstores doing that, as well as doing book clubs. That's another major audience for my books, is book clubs, because of the themes.
Okay, so how do you talk about book clubs? How do you find these book clubs? How do you approach them?
Well, when I'm doing an in-person event and I meet my readers or prospective readers and I talk about my books, I ask them to sign up on my mailing list so I can keep them informed about what I'm writing. And one of the questions I always ask them is whether they belong to a book club or not. And many absolutely belong to some form of a book club, whether it's through their church or a social network or through Goodreads, but then they tell me yes, they are in a book club, and I always say I am more than happy to come and talk to their book club, and if I can get on their annual roster for their read of the month, then I will come and sit down and talk with them in person.
Sounds like you're doing really wonderful things. And now, when you finished a novel, you show it to other people. What's your process when you reach that, you got that draft?
Well, when you finish that, find what you think is a final draft. It's like coming out of the cellar for air after a hurricane. You've been out of touch, and then it really is nice to have that reality check of those first readers. And I have a network of 6 people or so who I really trust their opinion, and then they get to read the manuscript and come back to me and tell me where they want more, where they want less, or this character is really interesting to me and I want to see more of that, or they have questions, and so then I go back and revise 2 or 3 more times. And then I also am, like I said, a fixture at the Attic Institute, and so in the craft class that I take there's 12 women, and we critique each other's chapters, so I get a lot more insight there, and then it goes to my editor. So the hardest part is after you're done.
It sounds like you really focused on that. So now, we're coming to the end. As we close, could you talk a little bit about specifically where people can find you on the web, or contact you, or if there's a book group out there, how can they reach you?
Well, my books are Stitches, Brushes, and Riffs as the trilogy series. I'm working on my 4th book, The Executrix, which I hope to have out by the end of the year, which is fun and funny story about three sisters who have to deal with their own lives after the death of their mother, and they get into all kinds of trouble. But I am on my website at Courtney-Pierce.com, Courtney-Pierce. Pierce.com, and also you can find my books at windtreepress.com, and I'm also on Facebook.
Well, I very much appreciate your being here to take your time, and I love hearing about your process. I teach people, but I wish you wonderful success, and when your next book comes out, perhaps we get together and talk about that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Bill. I appreciate it. And Willamette Writers is a big part of my process, too.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.